So what is the difference between something and nothing? If someone was to ask you, I have something here, or rather, define nothing and define something. Well, if someone was to ask me, what is something? Something is something that you can see, think about, imagine, touch, imaginate, create, right? But is it though? Is it? Or is it something? Before I go into that, what is nothing? Can you define what nothing is? Can you define something when you multiply by zero? Can you define nothing? If someone was to ask you, explain to me what nothing is, what are you essentially doing? You're essentially defining it, which makes it something. So can you ever in reality actually have nothing? Can you have nothing if you're trying to describe nothing? Okay, can the clouds exist outside of the sky? No. Can the sky exist irrespective of whether or not there's clouds in the sky? Yes. The point that I'm trying to make, or the point that I'm thinking about, is if we have thoughts about things and about everything, essentially, right? That's just what being human is, right? Where do these thoughts spawn from, though? That is the thing at question that I'm looking at now. Where do these thoughts come from? And do our thoughts have any, how can I say this? Can we think outside of our thoughts? Can we think outside of what we're able to think? No, that is untouchable. That is divine. And there are the things that we know, the things that we don't know, the things that we know we don't know, and the things that we don't know we know. Now, that space on the things that we can't touch is where God maybe lives. Maybe God lives in that space, in that realm, in the things that me, you, can't touch. And it's supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be that way. We're not supposed to be able to touch these things. We're not supposed to be able to touch these things. But then this also begs the question about the whole idea and the effects of thought and what it has given us as a society. Now, is there an alternative to this? You can't have, especially as humans, or maybe there's an alternative. Maybe you just can't see it because we're not able to conceptualize it. Something and nothing. Okay? Something and nothing. By essentially explain what something is. Think about it. What is something? Well, something could be anything. Something could be, like I said before, an idea, a place, a thing, a moment in time. Explain what nothing is. Well, nothing is... If you can explain it, it's lost all its meaning. Whether or not someone can explain it or not, that in turn makes it something. The same way with the words and thought, and it has to be this way, the same way we go about explaining things that are divine, the second that it leaves from our lips, we destroy the actual beauty of it forever. You know, you ever love something so much, or love, right? That's another conversation for later. If you're ever infatuated by something so much that I don't know what it is, but it's an innate feeling that arises from you, that like anything you could say would not do it justice on the sheer magnitude of how beautiful it truly is. It's as if we're doing it a disservice by even speaking about these things. Which is paradoxical, because then how are we gonna... We're just what? We're gonna let the moment die. We're gonna let the moment live, and we're gonna let the moment die. And what's the problem with that? Is there a problem? What is a problem? Why do we determine these things as problems? Why can't we let things live, and why can't we let things die? The natural order of things. The space where we're not able to touch, that is where God exists. Obviously, you can say it depends on, it's contingent on what is the shared definition of God. And I guess that's the problem with a lot of things. We as a society don't have the shared definition in mind. Like, we don't even, I'll speak for myself. How many of us actually understand the true definition of words? Regardless of now, even when we were younger, if we were taught what every word means, and even then, there's nuance within the nuance, It's such a fascinating thing, but so much gets lost in translation, so much. And even beyond what is lost in translation, it's not even, most of the time, we don't even capture it correctly. We don't even capture the information correctly. Whether the reasons are from lack of information, or idiocy, or lack of, or cause for manipulation. And why is this important? Why is this important? I'm unsure. Why put a label on things? It's as if, I don't know. It's as if we have thought, and thought tries to manipulate itself for its own well-being, and thought tries to convince itself that it's right. And this happens to almost every single individual on the planet. We try to convince ourselves that are correct in our reasoning, and then when we don't, there's dissonance. So how does this all come in together regarding the fears and aspirations and hopes, and even if why those things are even important in the first place, or if those things are necessary? It's a heavy thing. That is probably the heaviest thing that there is. At what point do we know if something if anything that we learn is just thought repeating itself. Because we try, we us, me, you, we look for information to save us, but in fact, in most cases, it's information that ends up ruining us and getting us more confused in the first place. Oh man! But even I know, I don't know. I have no idea. I genuinely don't know. At least in this moment in time, I have no idea. But you know, these last few years, I've been very uncertain, and you know what? Uncertainty is. I'm not gonna say good or bad, but it just is. I've been very uncertain about things. Why do I have to be certain? Why do we all? Is certainty even? It's a false certainty. We are all. We're all playing ourselves. Every single, almost. I don't know. Depends what you mean, but depends what I mean. Depends how it's interpreted. But we're all playing ourselves. There is no certainty. There is none. Not a shred of certainty. And we're not guaranteed it either. I don't know. I don't know. It just is. And it's such a cliche. It's such a cliche. But it just is. It just is. And what do we do about that? Do we do anything? Do we have to do anything about it? What are we doing? Chasing our own tail for 85 years? I don't know. But, if I may add, there are a few things, for whatever reason, there are a few things that are innately human. And that's love and that's compassion. And I was about to say that these things that I'm saying and these questions that are arising are rising because of love and because of compassion. I don't know if that's true. I feel that that's the way. I feel that. But how can I know? How can one know? At what point does one know? Yeah, you can say, I got an intuition. Yeah, it's fine. That's perfect. That's fine. But I don't know. I feel it. That's just how someone feels. That's the way I feel. I don't know. Can you define what something is? What is something? Okay. Can you define what nothing is now? No. Our thoughts, if our thoughts, right, if everything that we can conceptualize are inside this bubble, and everything else is out here, it is virtually impossible for us to grasp what is outside of the realm of thought. And that is a beautiful thing. Because outside of that is where God exists. He lives, it's inside the bubble too. But the same way, the whole, which is God, the whole could become part. The whole can become part, right? But the part cannot become whole. The part cannot become whole. We, if our thought is encompassed by this bubble, and whatever God is, you can't even call it a circle because it's not a circle. It's just, how can we think that we can ever, regardless of the amount of tech and the amount of innovation that we have, how can we ever think we can be part of the whole? We can understand the totality of the whole. How foolish can we be to even say that? Yes, we can try, we can persist, and we will persist. But in order for someone to say, "Oh, I have all the answers are X, Y, Z," I don't know. I think that's the best way I place it in this entire video. Our minds and our thoughts are inside this bubble, and it's impossible for us to leave the bubble. We cannot, we're not supposed to. We are not supposed to recognize the totality of things. Maybe we were. It's up to everyone to find out. But I don't know. But simply put, in this moment in time at least, you must act with eternity in mind. And it's a lot harder than it's easier said than done to act with eternity in mind. It's a lot easier said than done. But you must have a heart. You must have a heart. Everything I said correlates together. I just don't know how to put it into words. But you must have a heart. I'll have better words one day.